Ayodele Olajiga is founder and chief executive officer of Food Pro, a certified Nigerian cashew processing company offering a variety of flavored cashew kernels and other cashew-based products. His company currently employs about 400 workers, mostly women engaged in the processing of about 5,000 MT of cashew per annum. And today, he'll be telling us all about his journey. Hi, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So Ayo, I know that we've known each other for a while.
Yes.
I've always seen you on planes and automobiles, flying around the world, first from consulting and then from banking.
Yes.
And now you show up today and you're doing cashew processing.
Yes, that's true.
I'm sure it's a straight line, and you're going to tell us how.
Well, it's not a very straight line, but you know, in cashews you still fly around. I mean, we do Vietnam, India, the US, and then
just different routes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's, you know, we don't do the financial world; we do the commodity world now.
So tell me about commodities and why this was interesting to you, especially coming from your background. What about this world sparked your interest?
Well, I mean, in 2008, during the financial crisis, I was still living in South Africa at the time, and South Africa was one of those few countries that didn't really feel the impact of the financial crisis. And we looked at it at the time and realized it was because South Africa produces and most of what it consumes, it produces. The stuff that it doesn't produce,
need Forex for.
I mean, those luxury stuff, then they can charge you whatever you want. So we thought we could do the same in Nigeria, so we picked up Nigeria's agricultural imports. At the time, I think we picked rice, corn, and something else. And we did like 6 months investigation and realized that to cultivate anything in Nigeria is very expensive. You know, land clearing charges, finding the land, and all that stuff. And then we said, okay, look, let's do secondary processing, and then maybe in time we come back to growing stuff. And then it became, look, what should we process? And we ended up in cashews by accident because one of our partners, the family had an abandoned cashew factory. In Excel, it looked like an easy play. You know, go in there, put some money, and you know, start generating cash. And that's how we got involved in cashews. And I mean, we've been doing it now for about 5-6 years. I got involved full time about 2 years ago.
Okay.
But you know, so far so good.
So help people understand. I mean, a lot of times when you see cashew in Nigeria, it's sort of in a bottle, it's on the street, people are selling it. Help people understand like how much cashew is actually consumed globally and how much of that cashew comes from Africa. And then please bring it down to local level.
Well, I mean, so as the last time we looked, I think the total value of cashews globally, I think it was around $20 billion plus.
Oh, wow.
And the way the value works is, you know, so Africa produces half of global cashew.
The world cashew.
Yes, but we process less than 10%.
Okay, so in that number, 20 billion, there's also processing numbers in there.
Yes, so 20 billion I've given you is the retail, the retail sales where the consumers in the US and Europe, you know, and the rest of the world pay. Then what happens is, so Africa, so if you look at Nigerian newspapers, you hear things like $300 million, $400 million to the farmers. Doesn't necessarily get to farmers, it's mostly traders. I think the farmers get significantly less. But what happens is most of cashews from Africa, it goes to Vietnam and India for processing. Vietnam does exports anything, I think about $4 billion worth of processed cashew kernels to the US, China, and some other places. Now, if you bring that cashew back, if you look at it from a Nigerian perspective, I think you would say that 300 million that we're exporting, you could easily double or maybe even triple that if you were to say, you know what, I'm not going to export it, I'm going to process it, and then maybe you can export semi-processed. Or you can go as far as some of the things we do, which is, you know, flavor it, roast it, salt it, and sell it direct to the consumer. And that's where the value lies.
So just sort of going way back, when I was growing up in Nigeria, one of the things that you would always have is cashew fruit.
Yes.
I remember seeing a lot of cashew fruit around.
Yes.
But I actually don't remember eating cashew nuts growing up. I mean, there would be people that would roast it like, almost like after you eat it, someone would roast it. But it wasn't like a theme. It was like the fruit was the theme.
Yes, the fruit.
So what happens to the fruit now? I mean, with what you're doing, like, what is that? What is cashew really? What's happening with cashew?
So first of all, I mean, cashew grows on a tree.
Yes.
You know, I hope most people know that.
Yes. Most people, I hope you know that. Cashew grows on a tree.
Yeah. And so it's got the fruit and it's got the nut. Now, up until, I don't know whether it was 5, maybe 10 years ago, the fruit was the in thing.
Yes.
And if you eat it and it gets on your shirt, that's the end of that shirt.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that too. Yes.
Then people started to realize that there were markets where the demand for the nut was interesting. And over the last 5 years, we've seen it grow from 60, 40, 50,000 naira per ton to 700,000. And so what's happening now is nobody cares about the fruit. The fruit. So basically, when they harvest it, the fruit is thrown away. Yeah. Right. And the nut is what people care about because it's so valuable. Nobody cares about this thing that's going to stay in your shirt that you can't sell to anyone. I think in time, the fruit is going to come back but I don't think it's going to overtake the nut.
Well,
but
I mean,
you can do brandy with it. You can do cashew drinks, and the fruit has got more vitamin C.
Cashew milk has become a big deal too. Yes. Because a lot of people can't. I mean, there's this whole people that don't do dairy milk, so cashew milk is also a big thing.
But you make that from the nut.
That's what I'm saying. From the nuts. Yeah. So that's why when you say the value of the nut is really that's where the gold is.
Yeah, and I understand there's research ongoing that they're trying to use this an acid in the cashew nut that protects the nut, the kernel, that they're trying to make some drugs, using in the pharmaceutical industry. If that research is successful, I guarantee nobody's going to care about the nut. Then all of a sudden, what they want is that acid.
Yes.
So it depends on the value play.
And the research behind it.
Yes.
So tell me, where are you playing now in the value chain of cashew? I see there's some products you've brought today. Tell us about where you play and where Food Pro plays and where Food Pro wants to go.
So Food Pro plays the entire value chain except for cultivation. Okay. So at the moment, we're not growing cashews, but we do have access to land, and we're discussing the process of actually growing.
How long does it take to cultivate cashew trees?
The old seeds, 4 years. I hear there's hybrids growing in Brazil, which takes about 18 months. Mm-hmm. But you have to come and test them here and make sure they would grow, because it's interesting if it grows in Brazil. If it doesn't grow in Nigeria, it's not useful. Okay. I know they're testing them in Tanzania, but we haven't tested them in Nigeria yet. So already we played the entire value chain. What happens is that our semi-processed is what we're exporting to the US at the moment. What we would like to do is the final product, which is some of this stuff, obviously in different packages, take it to the end consumer in the US, in Europe, and different parts of the world where they consume cashews. This year, we hope to probably be able to get retail products into about 3 countries. And then also we are developing products that we could sell in larger volumes in Nigeria. The issue with cashew is the cashew is consumed by wealthy consumers in the West and in the Caribbean and the likes. So it makes it very expensive in Nigeria, especially compared to groundnuts. So what we're trying to do is figure out whether you can develop products that are cashew-based, but brings down the price points. All
right, so you're doing some cool stuff. So this is caramelized cinnamon cashew nuts.
Yes, those are a bestseller. People love them. If you like sugar. Well, not sugar, sweet things.
Sort of sweet, okay. Yeah. I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so let's see how. And then tell us about the other ones we have.
So, we have, basically we have 5 things that we do. We have 2 brands. One is Lion Cashews. That's what we started with. And that's just lightly salted cashews. And then we have the Go Nuts brand where we think we do interesting flavors. At the moment,
it's not too sweet. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's not too sweet.
We have 4 flavors in the supermarkets at the moment: cinnamon, rosemary, ginger, and suya. So cinnamon and rosemary is more if you like the sweet stuff, not too sweet. And then suya and ginger is if you like a kick in your cashews. At the just concluded GTV fair, we introduced 3 other ones. One is coconut flavored cashews. They are absolutely the best cashews in the world, combined. Then you have honey glazed and sesame, and then you have just plain honey glazed. So those 3 will probably come into the market before the year runs out.
So these now are available in stores across Nigeria.
Yes.
And you want this product as is what also could be available in other places.
Yes, so that's what we're working on now.
And then what countries have the highest demand for cashew nuts?
Well, so it's competition between India and the US. However, India, because India is a big processor, India is not a market we're targeting, but the US is very interesting for us. We will probably start in Europe, maybe the United Kingdom, and then also obviously go into the US. I mean, obviously the US is a massive market, so you would probably do a regional play first before you try to attack it nationally.
So I want to go back to like where these actually grow. So
Yes.
to go back to the plantation piece,
Yes.
where in Nigeria are the highest concentration of cashew nuts?
Well, so I mean, it's across the country. The largest producer is Kogi State.
Okay,
Kogi's got the largest concentration of cashews. The myth in the industry is that the best quality cashew comes from the southwest, so the Ogbomoso trading area is where you get the best from a processing perspective. The largest volume comes from Kogi and its environs. But it grows all across Nigeria.
And so, like, when you look at the job market, the people that actually trade off of and people that are employed in this sector, who are most, I mean, like, how does that work? Like, who are the people that this sector mostly employs?
So one of the reasons why we like processing is because processing creates a lot of jobs, and it creates a lot of jobs for women. So in our factory, for instance, about 90% women in the factory. Because most people don't know, but processing cashew is a very intimate process. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of attention to detail. So you find that, even when we try to introduce men, I mean, I think the longest lasting one was 48 hours.
They're like, okay, right, like, yeah. I'm done.
But women take care of the nuts. Because cashews, when you split them, they what do you call it? They lose value. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but then the consumer says, oh, this is broken. And so they want the cashews whole. So you need people who can pay attention to it.
Wow.
Now, if you look at the guys who are exporting raw cashews, the reason why, personally, I think, that's something we need to over time phase out is I can do 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 tons of cashews export using, I don't know, I can hire a manager, a warehouse, 2 warehouse managers, and casual labor for about 3 to 4 months, and that's it. Whereas if you try to process that same amount of cashews, you'll provide sustainable jobs for people for the whole year, and you create to the economy. And of course, obviously, because you're employing mostly women, the research says, I haven't done the research, but they say $1 in the hand of a woman goes farther in the economy than when you give it to a guy. Yes. I don't know why that is.
Yeah. Because it's about learning how to spread it across many things.
I will contend if you give me the $1, it will probably go further in my hand, But
all right, you and I will have that competition, but not here. When I was talking to you, I mean, just sort of looking at the value chain of cashew, what I also wanted to understand was, besides just this, what other things which very good, nothing wrong with it, besides just cashews and processing and putting them in bags like this, which this is, so it looks like it's important to seal, or this has like such a
so with snacks, oxygen is your enemy, because you don't want the oxidization to happen. That's when it gets soft. And you don't enjoy it as much. I mean, I've been to some stores in the UK and it was soft cashews, but it seemed like the guys who go there think that's the way it's supposed to be. But your cashew is supposed to actually be crunchy and tasty. If it's not, then you've allowed oxygen in.
So that packaging is also...
It's very important. It's very important to keep it and protect air from getting in. So that when you, and the advantage we also have is that if you buy products that's come from sometimes the US, that cashew is traveled for, 9 to 12 months before they roast it. And then before it gets to you, maybe another 4, 5, 6 months. When you buy our cashews, worst case scenario, because we try to push turnover, maybe 2 months.
Okay.
In most cases, 1 month. So you still enjoy that freshness. But then if you pick them up 6 months, it's still supposed to be very crunchy. But
so what other products can we get from cashew just besides the nuts?
I mean, you can do biscuits, you can do cookies, you can do butter, you can do anything you can imagine because you can make them into flour, and then the flour, anything you can do with flour, you can do with cashew flour, you can do milk, you can do. I mean, the thing is very. I think it's one of the most valuable trees because from the cashew nut you can do a lot of stuff. From the shells, we use the shells in power in our factory. If you have enough...
Oh, tell us more about that.
Yeah, because, you can burn them. They've got high calorific content. So if you set cashew shells on fire, they can burn for days. And, so So that we use it to fire some of our
So you use that
boilers.
to roast the...
Yeah, so we generate steam using a boiler which we fire with cashew shells.
Oh, wow.
If you have enough shells, you can, you can crush, what do you call it, press and extract the oil. That oil, when you finish processing, they use it in brake pads. So I haven't done research on the tree itself. I'm sure there's a use for the tree,
And then as far as nuts go, is it a healthy nut? Is it just sort of a snacky nut? Like, where does this sort of fall in the...
It's very healthy. Fortunately for years, this thing has competed. It was been going up against almonds, where they spend millions and millions of dollars, promoting almonds because it's rich farmers from California. But cashews are very good for your cardio health, and and they're a good snack. So
that's interesting that you said that. So almonds has been promoted as a healthy nut because of marketing.
Yes.
And this is something that people...
I mean, it is healthy. I'm not saying it's not healthy.
No. But there's a higher level of awareness
Yes.
of almond
Yes.
because of marketing.
Yes.
With cashew, why do you think that the level of marketing is not as intense?
It's non-existent.
It's non-existent because it comes from Africa?
Well, so if you look at the average almond farmer in California, is a wealthy person and is a wealthy association. If you look at the farmer, the average cashew farmer in Africa, I mean, they're poor, so they can barely get by. So talk less of forming an association to promote cashews. But I mean, there's a company in Australia that's done a research on all the nuts, and they're the fact sheets that show you that cashews are very healthy for you.
Wow. So Food Pro is also doing marketing. I see like the branding here, I see the positioning,
Yes.
and I see the fact that you're doing all these different flavors. From a marketing perspective, what is your vision for Nigerian cashews?
Well, I mean, personally, I would love to get to a point where you go to any of these chains internationally and you see, Nigerian processed roasted cashews on the shelves as coming from Nigeria. Not what we have right now, where you do semi-process, they ship it to somebody else, they roast it, and then say, oh yeah, this is their cashews. I mean, it's not. It comes from here. So, but there's a lot of work we've got to do to get to that point, and that's where we want to go, and we don't see any reason to do anything else. But that involves, consistency, certifications, and just following best practice. The reality is that because you're coming from Nigeria, you're probably going to have to do a bit more because there's a certain level of suspicion. But in doing more is why you win, because the other guy thinks, well, I'm just going to walk in.
Well, I've been doing this, so...
Yeah, you're already primed that, look, this is going to be a hard slog. So if we're going to do it, then let's do it big.
So I can see these. They look great. I am worried about the price point and accessibility to Nigerians. Are these things that everyone can sort of dabble into and get into some cashew, or is this once again for those?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting challenge that cashews have got, because the raw material itself is expensive, because you're competing with folks who are buying it for sale into the U.S.
Sure.
Nigerian cashews, the price point in Nigeria is cheaper than in the U.S., cheaper than in Europe. But in Nigeria, it's expensive. But what we're doing is we're looking for ways to, create smaller packs, create different combinations to ensure the large part of the population can get this. Because they're more healthy than peanuts.
Yes.
And peanuts, and the guys doing peanuts, no disrespect. I mean, there's all this aflatoxin and stuff. They don't, for Nigeria, they don't do any tests. They just roast them and give it to you. I even question the fact, I've stopped, since I got involved in cashews, you hardly find me eating anything in a bottle or any of that stuff in traffic. Because if you ever visit a cashew factory, you realize how intimate it is to process it. You will not touch anything that you...
You have to handle with care.
And those bottles, where'd they get them from? And the guy is selling it at, I don't know, 300, 200. Where did they get the bottle from? I
just want to say the Association of Peanuts Processors and Roasters, this is not about, this is not against you. Last week we had the leather people here, and we had to also tell the Association of Pomo Sellers that we are with them. So, but I think what's really important is for people to understand the value chain of what we have, and also just go back to where you started, which was the reason why South Africa wasn't affected by the financial crisis was the fact that they make most of what they consume.
Yes.
So going back to where you are now, you're in this value chain, you're trying to change the value chain. How much does it take to do what you're doing, and how accessible are those funds locally?
It's a lot. I mean, I think, the first answer would be, there's not a lot. However, I mean, we are being supported by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. We've got, funding from the Bank of Industry. But the reality is that until you get a point where commercial facilities are things that are accessible and affordable, you are always, for instance, in cashews, the more cashews you process, the more working capital you need. So for instance, the ratio is almost 80-20, whereby all the money you spend is in working capital because cashew is seasonal. So for instance, if I want to process 10,000 tons, I need about $8 to $10 million in working capital. And I think that's, I don't know, that's like what, 3.6 billion?
Yeah, 3.6, yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 3.6, yeah.
I mean, to get 100 million out of the Nigerian bank, I mean,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And I think that's also the message here to our financial institutions is really around structuring cash flow funding. Yeah. And I think that the interest rates on those are, of course, conversations we've had with the CBN.
I mean, the costs don't make any sense because you're effectively working for the bank. But, I have to confirm, but I suspect that, I think I remember someone telling me that according to the rules, laid down by the CBN or whatever it is, they can't actually lend to you without security. So they can't do cash flow lending. They can look at your cash flows, but they need to
They need a collateral. That's one of the things the banks have said.
They'll be breaking the rules.
Yes. So I think that's why I was saying, those are conversations we've even had with CBN Governor when he was on our show. We continue to push, but I think what's really exciting is the fact that you're processing and you're doing retail, and it looks good, and it can be anywhere in the world. I mean, this looks like it could be on any shelf. So what we want to say is congratulations and good luck to Food Pro.
Thank you very much.
We'll love to have you guys back on the show as you develop other products.
Look forward to it.
And what can people look forward to, and what should people pick up this weekend as they're looking at cashews?
Look, I think you just go into the stores, ShopRite again, buy the Go Nutz range, taste them. If you have any comments, reach out to us. Okay. I will respond personally.
All right.
So, enjoy some cashew-filled weekend.
All right, Ayodele, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
We're heading for a quick break. When we return, we'll be speaking with Gussie Nwakwoke, a man who started a university when his classmates were still in one. Stay tuned.